since using this Field Maps app is quite effortful relative to just picking up the traps and throwing them in the dumpster, I thought it would be worthwhile to talk a few minutes about why I think this is helpful to us in our efforts to reduce trap dereliction. But the first thing I want to clarify is that there's really two reports I need from each of the teams. The first one for Texas Parks and Wildlife is just the trap count and the volunteer effort, and it is a handwritten report. You can, in the last email that I sent out, there was a link to it. It can be filled out at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be. Don't go out in the. You don't have to take out in the bay with you. But when you get back, you'll need to have counted the traps that you picked up, and be able to list the volunteers and the amount of time they'll spent on the water. I sum up these, and this is what I report to Texas Parks and Wildlife. They want to know how many traps we picked up by each bay system, and this is Texas Parks and Wildlife bay systems. You know, San Antonio Bay includes Espiritu Santo Bay and San Antonio Bay and Guadalupe Bay and Hines Bay, all of those. So it's the complete ecosystem that Texas Parks and Wildlife describes. But anyway, I just need that back from you in a handwritten form, either as a picture, take a picture of it, send it to me. We add them all up, and then we share it with the Texas Parks and Wildlife ecosystem leaders, and they report them to the state coordinator. Then the other thing is the San Antonio Bay Partnership is doing and is encouraging the Matagorda Bay folks and the Aransas Bay people to do as well, is the Field Maps app. It takes the trap location, the owner, the content of the traps, and a few other little things, and I'm going to talk about in a minute about why that is helpful to us. But that's what you're here today for, and Bridget's going to tell you how to use this. This is the volunteer report that goes to Texas Parks and Wildlife. On the right hand side, it's a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. The important things are the number of traps removed by bay system, the volunteer effort, that's the number of volunteers and the hours on the water. There's some opportunities to comment about your observations on the bay, that anything you think is interesting, and to provide comments and suggestions for next year. And it's for if you're going out more than once, going out more than one day. What I need this is for each team each day. Otherwise, I lose them, and it's helpful to me if every team submits this for their day on the water. Again, it's handwritten. In the email that I sent you, it was there was a link to it. But also, if you go onto the San Antonio Bay Partnership website and look under Crab Trap Program, you can find the link to print it yourself. And when we did this, we were anticipating a lot of people were going to be able to get in the water on Saturday, so we were asking them to turn it in at the party. But that doesn't look like that's going to work very well. So, next slide, Bridget.
Allan, and you want that form regardless of whether or not we're using the ArcGIS thing, right?
Yes. This got it. What you'll see in a little bit, not everybody is marking traps with ArcGIS, and then it seems like we missed things. And so the official numbers of Texas Parks and Wildlife will come from this handwritten report. The other stuff we use in other ways. Okay, and this is just to help you. In the last 6 years, the mid-coast, the 3 bay systems have picked up about 6,700 traps in that 6 year period. You can see the numbers year by year. I would like to hope that the decline is real, but it's hard to know. It's very much driven by the weather affects greatly our ability to pick up traps, and so. A low number like in 2019, I don't recall the weather, but it could have easily been bad. We didn't get in the water as often. As you said, we're picking up 1,000 traps every year. And I hope it's down a little bit this year, but we'll see. Okay, now the Field Maps app does it identifies the trap location automatically. So all you have to do is punch the buttons, and it takes care of that. And additionally, we want information about whose trap it is and what's in the trap. And then why collect this data? The Parks and Wildlife Abandoned Crab Trap Removal Program is over 20 years old. And there's no data in that database in terms of where in the bay systems the traps are found, whose traps they are, and why they might be derelict. And so that our goal was to figure out how to reduce trap dereliction, and we thought this would be helpful to us figuring out what to do. The red dots on this map are the ArcGIS field maps entered data from 2023. And in 2023, we picked only 80% of the traps that were reported picked up were actually in field maps. So a lot of the statistics that you'll see later in the thing are based on the 80% number, because we don't know where the other traps were or who they belong to or anything. But so all of our analysis is on these red dots. And you can see you can see visually where the traps are. They're at least in the San Antonio Bay system along the north-facing shoreline, mostly, and then in Guadalupe Bay and Mission Lake up at the river. And the San Antonio Bay system, the San Antonio Bay volunteers have done a much better job of using ArcGIS, and we have a much bigger contingent of people going out than the other base systems do. We probably have more traps in our base systems than they do as well.
So,
okay,
to clarify, ArcGIS and field maps is the same thing.
Yes, I'm sorry. It used to be called Collector, but then they upgraded it to field maps. Okay, so what are some of our learnings from the data we've been collecting? The first big learning was where the base system, the maps were. And so in the San Antonio Bay system, about half of the traps were on the shoreline. And there was kind of wind blown to the shoreline. About a quarter of the traps are in shallow marsh and lakes. They're likely where the crabber put them, but his ability to retrieve them during low winter tides is problematic. And then the other 25% of the traps were in the open bay and were reachable by the crabber's boats. So we don't know why he didn't pick them up, but he didn't pick them up. So we saw those open bay traps as being the low-hanging fruit. I mean, there's no more. If the crabber's after picking up his traps, so we've been sharing with the crabbers this data. They get a letter from me that if they had more than 10 traps in the open bay, they get a letter from me that said, "Here's where I found your traps." It's a nicely worded letter. It's not accusatory or anything. It just says, "Here's where I found them, and hopefully you can pick them up next time." But if you look at the numbers in the very bottom of the page, it shows the numbers from in the open bay from 2020 to 2023. See, in 2020 there were 500 traps in the open bay, and in 2023 there was only 123. So we feel like we're at least making progress in this, and because there's just a lot fewer traps that the crabbers are leaving out. And maybe it's because he realizes now if he doesn't pick them up, we will.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that's that. We're taking credit for that decline anyway. So that has been helpful there. This is the data from it's 2021. It's on the island in San Antonio Bay at South Pass Lake and Long Lake. And this is where the traps were in 2021. It's obviously where the crabber put them, and he just didn't pick them up. And so this type of data is this part of the island is controlled by U.S. Fish and Wildlife in terms of they have the ability to close these lakes to crabbing. They haven't really enforced that, but so this kind of data helps me argue as to why, helps me argue with them and present to them why they should be more active in trying to close, to regulate the traps back in this area. They're very difficult for us to retrieve too. You know, if they were easy to retrieve, the crabber would have got them. The volunteers are in there doing it. We do have airboats back in these lakes now that make it very helpful as well. A couple of things that we're trying to new initiatives that are kind of a result of this data. The first one is a trap retrieval program after windstorms. You know, instead of letting the traps sit up there all till the February, there's an opportunity to maybe go retrieve them. Unfortunately, this requires us to address the current regulatory regime. You know, right now the volunteers can't go pick up traps after a windstorm. They can only pick up traps during this 10-day period. So we've got to figure out how to either change the regs or figure out a way to get the crabbers permission, get them to participate with them to go pick up their traps. I don't know what the program might look like, but it's certainly an opportunity to address the biggest chunk of the traps are from this cause, and so we need to not ignore it and figure out how to maybe make it better. The second thing listed is a trap disposal program. We've seen some evidence from our data that the traps are being disposed of in the bay. We see places where they're kind of piled up in a place that's unlikely for them to be windblown to there. And so our hope is that we make it easier to dispose of the traps, and we would do it through a metal recycler that would maybe assist and discourage people from taking them out of the bay and dumping them when they get old. Again, as I said earlier, our desire is to reduce trap dereliction. There's less ghost fishing, fewer navigation hazards, and less litter from these steps. To me, success isn't picking up 1,000 traps every year. Success is a comprehensive search that finds no traps. And so, you know, when you're running the bay and feeling down that you haven't found a trap, when I say if you're looking hard and looking in places they might be and you find none, that's good news. We'll celebrate that. Taking the data is more effortful than just picking up in the trap. But my hope is that we can make progress in reducing the trap dereliction in the San Antonio Bay system. Right now, there's about I think there's 35 licensed crabbers in Calhoun County, and there's probably 12,000 active traps in Espiritu Santo in the San Antonio Bay area from those crabbers. So there's a lot of traps out there, and 1,000 of them is only what, 10% of the traps that they're running. The literature that I have seen on this topic suggests that they're losing 20% of their traps in other places. So I don't think we're finding all the traps. Some of them are you can't find them because they're in the bottom of the bay. But our job is to look for them.